I hope that in the previous exercise, it made you realize how amazing Docker Compose is and how easy it is to set up something like Redis on it. So let me show you how we can set up Redis onto this Docker Compose if you weren't able to do it. Again, we're just going to add a new service by first adding a comment, and we're going to add a Redis service. And this Redis service will have an image that is Redis. Luckily, Docker Hub already has a Redis image already set up for us, which is very, very kind of them. And then we also want to add ports. So we have access to it on our machine, on our local host, and we'll give it the default Redis port, which is 6379. And if you ever start a Redis server, this is exactly how the port will be. If we go back here, we see that when we started the server, the port was 6379. All right, so I'm going to do port forwarding again to have access to it on my machine. And the next piece is that we want to make sure that we can access Redis from our backend API. So if you remember, we'll have to do links to the Redis service. And the backend API that links to the Redis service, most likely we should also give it an environmental variable. That is, just like we did with Postgres, where we give it the URI or unique resource identifier to connect to it, we need to do the same for Redis. So let's say Redis URI. And this URI is going to use the naming created in Docker Compose. In our case, the Redis service. So instead of saying localhost or anything like that, we just say Redis is being accessed by the Redis localhost, and the port is going to be 6379. And that should be all we need to do. Now, the one thing we need to change now is in the signin.js, where we access the Redis client. Instead of using host, we can just simply give it the URI. And again, we're doing the exact same thing as we are doing with the database. We're simply giving the process.env Postgres URI, but this time to the Redis client. And we want to do process.env .redis URI. Let's save this, and I want to rerun everything. We have to close down Docker so that this Redis service gets now created. So let's give that a go. I'm going to actually bring everything down just so we get a nice fresh state. All the containers or all the services were removed, and I'm going to run Docker Compose up build. And hopefully, if everything works out, we now have Redis in our container. All right, we haven't gotten any connection errors, which is the thing we want to look out for. Backend is running. We see that Postgres is running. If I scroll all the way up, look at that. I see our Redis service as well that is ready to accept connections. How cool is that? We've just added Redis, Postgres, and backend all into our Docker container. And you might remember the image that we had initially where we said that we want to create a Docker container around all these three services. And now the amazing thing is that the developers that join our team don't really need to worry about Postgres or Redis or even the backend API. Everything runs with one command. And the other exciting thing is that if I go back here and instead of Redis, we enter our project, that is the SmartBrain API. From here, I can access the Redis server that is in our container by simply running Docker Compose, execute Redis, and then running the Redis CLI. Look at that. We're able to log into our Redis server and do any GET requests to check if things are actually in our database. Very, very cool. I hope you were able to get to that point and add Redis to our Docker container, because now we can do some really, really fun things. We're going to be able to finally go back to our signin.js and store our token. In the create session here, we can store our token in our Redis database. We're going to do that in the next video. I'll see you in that one. Bye-bye.